Happy Friday, you guys, for Intro to Anatomy and Physiology. I'm not going to share very much new material with you today because most of your assignment is review of previous topics. And so I'll give you a little refresher on some of those things. But happy Friday. A note to seniors that your last week of school is next week. And so you need to be wrapping up all of your assignments, including the final, which I'll send to you seniors. You underclassmen, you get another week, and we will be wrapping everything up the next week. But you guys have a test over the endocrine system next week on Tuesday. We're almost through, and we'll just cover a few new things today. I don't have the sheet in front of me, but when you find this page in your notes, I think it's maybe page 4 or 5, we're going to talk about this picture up top. You can cross off this picture down below. We're not going to get into this. This is about the stress response and your hormone's effect on stress. But this might be an apt time to do it, but we're not going to have time. So that won't be on your test, and so we won't cover it on your notes. We are going to fill this chart out today. This is a picture of negative feedback. And negative feedback is the way in which your body maintains a balance. And this is the way most hormones are controlled in your body. The only ones that really aren't are some of the reproductive hormones, especially in childbirth. Those hormones that stimulate the contraction of the uterus, oxytocin, is going to be amplified every time the signal is sent. But in the case of most other hormones, it's kind of this, like it turns on for as long as you need it, and then it turns off. Think of your thermostat in your house. You set your thermostat at 65 degrees. If you get colder than 65, the heat will kick on and bring you up to 65 or maybe a little above. And then as soon as you hit that threshold or that perfect point, you will turn off the heat and it'll slowly drop again, and then you kick it back on. That's negative feedback. So let's use a real example of hormones on your diagram here. So this diagram here is going to represent blood calcium levels in your body. So imagine this teeter-totter is the balance beam of your blood calcium levels. If, let's say, my blood calcium spikes for whatever reason in my body, I have an increase in calcium levels in my bloodstream. That bloodstream is going to affect directly my thyroid gland. And my thyroid gland is going to release its hormone that acts upon calcium, which is calcitonin. And so calcitonin's job is to try to lower that increase of blood levels. So it's responding to this. It's too high. I want to bring it back down. So what calcitonin does is it stimulates my bones. And in my bones, if you can remember from our skeletal unit, we have osteoblasts. And osteoblasts were the builders of our bones. And so they are going to build bone, take out excess calcium from the bloodstream, and that will hopefully lower my blood calcium levels. Now, maybe it lowers it out so it's perfectly balanced, and then the whole system turns off until it gets out of whack again. But maybe those osteoblasts work too good, and they decrease the levels of calcium so much so that now I have a decrease. So a different hormone will come into effect here. So again, here's the thyroid gland, but this view, I'm looking at the backside. So my thyroid's here, and if I were to pull it out and turn it around, I could see these 4 little dots on the backside. Those are the parathyroid glands. And the parathyroid gland releases parathyroid hormone, or PTH. Parathyroid hormone's job is to try to increase my levels of calcium, because again, it's responding to a decreased level. So instead of removing calcium from the bloodstream, it instead works on these cells, the osteoclasts. And the osteoclasts are the ones that are going to actually break down the bone and put calcium back into the bloodstream. And so these hormones are the chemical messenger, and they act on a target cell. So calcitonin's target cells are the osteoblasts in the bone. Parathyroid's target cells are the osteoclasts. And so whenever parathyroid's in the bloodstream, these osteoclasts have receptors that basically tell it when it's time to turn on, and then they have their action and their effect. So it's this whole kind of back and forth, back and forth. This works opposite of this. And it's this whole teeter-totter of continuing to balance. And that's what negative feedback is all about. Now, there are many antagonists hormones, meaning they work opposite each other. So as we can see here, okay, calcitonin and parathyroid work opposite each other, and they work to balance your calcium levels. Insulin and glucagon, those two work opposite of each other. Insulin responds to too much blood or just more glucose in the bloodstream, and so it lowers your blood sugar in the blood, whereas glucagon is going to raise your blood sugar if, let's say, you have a lack of glucose in your bloodstream. And then the other two that are antagonistic is aldosterone, which affects your blood pressure, and this other one we haven't mentioned, atrial natriuretic peptide, and it's a mouthful, so we abbreviate it ANP. It is put out by the heart to help maintain blood pressure. But these two are also antagonistic to each other because they work opposite. So that's all for new notes today. But on your homework, you're going to see a lot of review of other notes. So these are things we've already filled out. I just want to review SuperDuper Fast. So this page was trying to explain the difference between the two types of hormones, steroid-based versus amino acid-based. Most hormones are this. But steroids are unique because they can go directly into the cell's nucleus, interact with these proteins inside the nucleus, and cause an effect on DNA in the nucleus itself. So they go right into the target cell, whereas amino acids, they only go to the outside. So they only attach to an extracellular receptor, whereas steroids go straight in and interact with an intracellular receptor. So that's the difference between them. And we've kind of highlighted what are steroids and what aren't. This page, or it's the same page, but underneath, was the 3 types of ways that we stimulate our hormones in our body. So most of them are those tropic hormones that one hormone stimulates another hormone to stimulate another hormone. And so the hypothalamus releases its hormones to stimulate the anterior pituitary, then the anterior pituitary releases its hormones to stimulate other hormones. That's kind of the main one. Anterior pituitary has tons of tropic hormones, ACTH, luteinizing hormone, FSH, TSH, those are all ones that are stimulating other glands. So if the target is another gland, then it's a tropic hormone. Humoral stimulus is like the thyroid, like we just looked at. So, and the parathyroid, really. So if you have low calcium in the blood, it's the blood decrease or increase that's going to stimulate those hormones. So parathyroid is an example of humoral because it's in the humors, the liquid. And the neural stimulus is when the brain or nervous system is going to stimulate your hormones. I can't remember if it's on today or Monday's homework, but also knowing the difference between our nervous system and endocrine system. Nervous system is very fast. You can have an immediate response, right? Like telling myself to snap my fingers, that is going to be a nervous response. But I had breakfast about an hour ago, and so my body is working through my new glucose levels in my body, and insulin's going to be being released, and my cells are going to be taking in insulin, and all of these things are going to be endocrine system. It's slower, but its effects last much longer. Snapping my fingers over and done with as soon as I did it. And so there's benefits of both. Okay. This page you're going to use to identify what hormones are being released from the different glands. So be sure and look over that. I wanted to point out, remember this thing here, I think this is on Monday's homework, but a goiter is this enlargement of the thyroid gland right here because of an iodine deficiency. And you and I probably get lots of iodine in the salt that we have in the US, but some third world countries don't have iodinized salt like we do. So here's more. It just tells you about a little more details about what hormones each gland is secreting. This page, lots of details about the pituitary gland and all of its hormones, because there wasn't enough room on the previous page. So we have a whole page dedicated just to my pituitary and hypothalamus. This is a lot of those cascades. Just remember, the posterior pituitary doesn't actually make these hormones right here. The hypothalamus actually makes them, and then the posterior stores it. And then when it's time for them to be released, they get zapped by those little neurosecretory cells. Whereas the anterior pituitary makes its own, and then it releases them based on the releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. Okay, this is just more of kind of the same. We identified who were steroids on this page, what different effects of like thyroxine is your metabolic rate, metabolism in your thyroid gland. All of this stuff would be good things to review for your homework. All right, just a super fast review for you guys. And we'll have a review assignment on Monday, and then your test will be Tuesday. So be working towards that. Seniors, your final will be available for you early for you to take because all of your work is due by Friday next week. So we can wrap up all your grades for graduation. So the 22nd is when seniors' work is due, including your final. So you have to get that done a little early. So I've sent you seniors a message. Make sure and check your email for details from me. All right. I hope you guys are doing well. And it's Friday, so I wore my Hawaiian shirt Friday day. And I hope you guys have a great one. Bye.